will survive and what will be left of them. Today on Outside the Box Reviews, we are taking a look at the NECA Retro Collection Leatherface from the Texas Chain Saw Massacre. Leatherface is of course the next step on giving us more horror icons in this retro collection line, and I have to say a significant step forward in the line. Previous figures I've reviewed, my biggest complaint has been the lack of articulation, but this figure is the first one I've picked up using the new 2.0 body, which is a vast improvement over previous releases. Leatherface comes with some cool accessories. Here we have his hammer. We can see a little blood splatter on there, a nice silver hammerhead. Some very nice wood grain texture going on the handle of it. Very well done hammer, very iconic from the movie where he knocks the one kid out and he's like twitching on the floor. Had to have this with Leatherface. But if you had to have any weapon with Leatherface, it has to be this, of course, his chainsaw. His iconic yellow chainsaw from the first film. Got the blade going on there looking very nice, some nice blood splatter effect. The handle on here as well. Very nicely detailed. It's been a while since NECA has touched the Texas Chainsaw line, but they've done a very nice job with this chainsaw. Also, for ease in posing in his hands, because his hands are molded shut, you can actually remove the rear handle and the upper handle, and that will just let it slide right into his hands, and then you just peg it all back together, and you have him holding his chainsaw. As for the figure himself, NECA has done a pretty good job. The head sculpt is in line with what we've seen in the other retro collection figures. It's a good NECA quality sculpt, but it's a little kind of softer around the edges and some of their more accurate stuff, though I do think this is really well done. There's a great texture and paint apps going on with the mask itself, making it look like dried out skin. You can see his nasty teeth inside there, his eyes recessed. His eyes are kind of a little wonky in the way they're painted, looking kind of down, a little strange of a pose. We have a little hole up here where you can see his normal skin underneath. Stitch lines around the seams. The ears in front of his actual ears. And the wig on top with some nice dry brushing in it to bring out the shading. And just like any of these figures, he does have cloth clothing. So here we have his striped shirt. We've got some blood splatter going on here. Now this version has the blood splatter. I bought mine at an FYE. But Toys R Us in store actually released this guy without the blood splatter. So it'd be just a clean version of what I'm looking at here. Of course, as a horror fan, I want the blood splatter. That's kind of important to me, but interesting that Toys R Us demanded a more toned down version. We have his collar up here, which is a little thick, but to be expected with a figure this size. Even Hot Toys has trouble doing collars that don't look overly large. A very nice tie. His apron is really cool looking. It's not leather, it's just cloth, but it actually does have a nice look to being a heavier material instead of just being the thin material his shirt's made out of. Love the blood splatter on here. I think it looks very lame without it when I've seen the Toys R Us one. One thing I'm not so huge on is the straps for the apron here are kind of this silky, shiny material. They come up around his neck and also tie in the back. It's almost like a ribbon you'd wrap a present in, and I'm not so big on this. I do believe underneath this shirt, because Leatherface is a larger character, it feels like there is some padding going on in here to bulk him up, which is to be expected. We have his jeans down here, which are really nicely done. We can see the pockets stitched in there, which is really cool. It's a great denim look for the pants. Then we have his hard sculpted shoes with a little more blood added to them. Some nice cowboy boots because he is from Texas. We have his arms, a short sleeve shirt, and this is one thing I really dislike. They did a good paint job on his hands to have it match the rest of his painted skin, but it does not match this buck underneath. So while you do have some nice hands going on here, it just is very abrupt. Almost looks like he's wearing gloves. It's kind of a bummer. For articulation, as I said, this is the 2.0 body, much better articulated. We have a ball joint at the head, so you can look very far up, down, side to side, tilt his head, all that good stuff. Pin socket shoulders and go forward and back, out to the side. We get a bicep swivel, which is new. You bend at the elbow. We can rotate and hinge at the wrist. We can swivel at the waist. The legs can go forward and back and out to the side, as well as swivel, another improvement. Bend at the knee. And then just to hinge at the foot, I wish we did have a ball joint at the foot or something to give us a pivot, but still much improved articulation on this figure overall. I think this figure is a huge improvement over the previously released figures in this line. As I said, I think there are some figures that predate this one in the line that use this new body, but this is the first one I've picked up with the new body, and I really like what they've done. If they would have started here with the line, I would have been much happier with the early releases. There are still some problems with this. I really dislike the paint going down the arms. I really wish they could have repainted that buck body underneath. I think the straps on the apron are pretty lame, but beyond that, everything else on here is really nicely done. The weapons look good, the rest of the clothing looks great, and the articulation is much better than it used to be. So I'm gonna give Leatherface a recommend. He's a pretty decent figure. But honestly, this thing just gets me more hyped up for the fact that we are getting an Ultimate Leatherface coming up later this year. In the normal 7-inch scale, the full plastic figures, which are the ones that I more enjoy having. This retro line is cool, but I didn't have Migos as a kid. That wasn't what I collected as a kid. I don't really think Migos were a thing when I was a kid. So I don't have nostalgia for it. And just like with the Star Wars Vintage Collection, where some people were going crazy over it because it was their childhood, it's not mine. So I just don't have that connection with these figures that I think a lot of other collectors might. But NECA is continuing on with this line. It seems to be pretty successful for them. They are doing another Leatherface, the Pretty Woman Leatherface. So another one from the first film. I think Randy had said something the other day that he was going to try to hit Texas Chain Saw 2, which is a personal favorite of mine. So it'd be kind of cool to see how that came out. Make sure you check me out on Instagram, username Outside the Box Reviews. Also check me out on Facebook, link below. And until next time, so with our Outside the Box Reviews, stay tuned for more to come.